Jed Carter was the kind of man who lived by 3 simple rules. Don't poke the bull, don't trespass, and don't start trouble you can't finish. His ranch sat just outside the boundary lines of a neighborhood run by one of the most overbearing HOA boards in the county. He liked it that way. Wide skies, no nosy neighbors, and peace. Until one morning, that peace shattered with a sound Jed didn't expect. A sharp, rhythmic buzzing. Not bees. Not bugs, but something mechanical. He stepped off the porch, coffee steaming in hand, and squinted up at the sky. There it was, floating like a fat, nosy insect, a sleek, black drone, hovering just over the corral. And it wasn't just anywhere. It was hovering above Bonnie. Now, Bonnie wasn't your average bull. A 4-year-old Texas Longhorn with sweeping horns and a temper like a thunderstorm. He didn't take kindly to new things, especially not buzzing things invading his airspace. Jed watched as Bonnie stomped, snorted, and then charged the fence, staring down the drone like it owed him rent. Jed narrowed his eyes. What in the hell? The drone tilted sideways, almost as if it were watching. Then it zipped toward the barn, hovered for 10 seconds, then returned to hover over Bonnie. Jed looked down the road. There weren't many houses close, but if he had to guess who was behind it, only one name came to mind: Delaney. The self-appointed queen of the HOA, Karen had a reputation for overreach. If a blade of grass was too tall or a fence was one shade off, she was there, clipboard in hand, and her lips curled tight like she'd sucked on a lemon. She believed her jurisdiction didn't end at the HOA line. It extended wherever she could see. And now, apparently, wherever she could fly. That evening, Jed walked down to the fence with a pair of binoculars and watched as the same drone rose up from the Delaney residence 3 blocks over. No license plate, no ID. Just a little, blinking red light like a bug zapper with a vengeance. Jed didn't say a word. He simply tipped his hat, whistled to Bonnie, and headed back to the house. But the next morning, things escalated. The drone came lower. This time, it circled Jed's solar panels, dipped toward the barn, then hovered so low over Bonnie's back that the bull bucked and slammed into the fence. Furious, Jed stormed out. But before he could do anything, Bonnie did it for him. The bull reared up, twisted his neck, and with a move Jed swore he'd only seen once in a rodeo, Bonnie leapt up and gored the drone midair. One horn caught it clean, shattering plastic and wire as it spiraled to the dirt like a dying bird. It landed in 3 smoking pieces. Bonnie snorted and trotted away like he'd won a prize fight. Jed stared. Then he chuckled. But that laugh didn't last long. Within an hour, a sleek black SUV rolled up to his front gate, and stepping out of it, with a folder in one hand and rage in the other, was Karen Delaney herself. "You owe me $1,200, she barked before he even said a word. That drone was private property. I was within my rights. Jed crossed his arms. You were flying it over my land. I have HOA authority to monitor the perimeter for code violations. You ain't the border patrol. Lady, she shoved a paper through the gate. This is a formal notice. I'll be filing charges. And don't think your cow is off the hook either. I have footage." Jed raised an eyebrow. "You're really gonna go after a bull? You're lucky I don't have animal control out here already," she snapped. "But I will." Jed didn't blink. "Try it." Karen turned on her heel, climbed into her SUV, and sped off, dust trailing behind like a storm. Jed looked back at the remains of the drone, still stuck on Bonnie's horn like a victory flag. He didn't know it yet, but this wasn't over. It was just the beginning. Jed Carter wasn't one to take nonsense seriously, especially not when it came from a woman like Karen Delaney. But when he found an envelope zip-tied to his front gate the next morning, sealed with the HOA logo and filled with legal jargon, even he had to admit, this wasn't just a nosy neighbor feud anymore. It was war. Inside the envelope was a formal letter stating that Jed was being held responsible for the destruction of private property, namely Karen's drone. It included a bill for $1,200, a printout of what looked like grainy drone footage, and a threat to escalate the matter to civil court if he didn't pay by Friday. Jed let out a low whistle as he read it, shaking his head in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me," Bunny, as if on cue, let out a low grunt from the paddock, chewing lazily on a patch of hay with not a care in the world. Jed glanced over at the bull's massive horns still carrying a slight dent in the right one. From yesterday's drone SWAT hand smirked. "She's going to try and sue a bull." Jed was annoyed, sure, but not worried. Karen's drone had been flying over his property. There were clear laws about that. He even looked it up to be sure. Still, he figured it was time to make a move. He picked up his phone and dialed his daughter Tina. "Hey, sweetheart," he said when she picked up. "You got a minute? I need a little legal firepower." Tina Carter was finishing her final year at law school and had a reputation for dismantling arguments faster than her dad could wrangle a steer. She listened as Jed explained the whole situation, then let out a sharp laugh. "She filed a complaint over a drone being gored by a bull? On your land? She says she's got footage and somehow a bylaw nonsense." "Then let her bring it," Tina said. "And Dad, document everything. Take pictures of the fence, the wreckage, even Bonnie. We're going to bury her in her own paperwork." Jed hung up feeling better already, but Karen wasn't finished. The next day, just before noon, a white van with a county seal pulled up at the end of the long gravel drive. Out stepped a man in khakis and a button-up shirt carrying a clipboard. Jed met him halfway. "Can I help you, Sean Patel?" the man said, flashing a badge. "Animal control. I got a report about an aggressive bull possibly dangerous to the public." Jed blinked. "You're joking." "Afraid not," Sean replied. "Someone from the HOA said there's a bull here that attacked a drone unprovoked. I need to take a look." Jed chuckled. "Unprovoked? That thing was flying low enough to shave his back." Still, Jed led the man onto the property. He wasn't hiding anything. Bonnie was lounging under an oak tree, looking about as dangerous as a lawn chair. Sean raised an eyebrow. "This the aggressive one?" "That's Bonnie," raised him since he was a calf. Never so much as charged a fence post unless he spooked. That drone came in low and loud. He reacted like any bull would. Sean scribbled some notes, then walked the perimeter. Took photos of the busted drone pieces Jed had carefully collected in a bucket, and asked a few more questions. Finally, he shook his head. "This is overkill. You're outside HOA boundaries. Anyway, she shouldn't be flying anything over your ranch. I'll file my report, but I doubt anything comes of it." Jed nodded. "Appreciate your time." But later that afternoon, just when Jed thought things were calming down, he heard a buzz again. He looked up, and there it was, another drone. Sleeker this time. Smaller. Hovering just above his barn like it owned the sky. Bonnie raised his head, snorted, and started pacing again. Jed grabbed his phone and hit record, but he didn't yell, didn't panic. He just waited, and sure enough, the drone dipped. Lower, then lower again. Bonnie's muscles TNSED. Jed muttered under his breath. "You didn't learn the first time, did you?" The bull charged, leaped, and cracked. The second drone met the same fate. Wires, propellers, and plastic rained down like confetti. Jed laughed and panned the phone across the wreckage. Round 2. he said to the camera, and Bonnie's undefeated. 3 days. That's how long it took before Karen Delaney went from furious to absolutely unhinged. It was 10:03 a.m. on a Thursday when Jed Carter heard the squeal of tires on gravel, followed by the unmistakable sound of a horn blaring at his front gate. He set down his coffee, stepped onto the porch, and saw it, Karen's pearl-white Cadillac parked sideways, like she'd been trying to block a getaway car. She was already halfway through the gate on foot, stomping up the path like a storm in heels. Jed didn't move. He just folded his arms and leaned on the porch railing. Karen's face was red, her hair a mess, and in her hand, she held what looked like a broken drone propeller in a Ziploc bag, like it was a piece of forensic evidence. "You think this is funny?" she shouted, holding it up like a trophy. "This is harassment." Jed raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, you're the one breaking onto my land now. This," she hissed, shaking the bag, "was my property. And I now have two drones that have been what? Destroyed by your livestock." Jed didn't even flinch. "No one invited your flying toys out here." Karen marched right up to the porch steps. "You are harboring a dangerous animal. That bull is unstable. I don't care if you're outside the HOA, you are a threat to community safety." Jed tapped the side of his boot. "You got a warrant." "I don't need a warrant. I have rights." Jed didn't budge. "You also have a boundary line. You crossed it the second you brought that second drone out here." Karen's voice hit a pitch that could break glass. "That drone was private. My property. You let your animal destroy it again. You're going to pay, Mr. Carter, either in court or in fines." "I've already spoken to a lawyer." "I've got one better," Jed replied coolly. "My daughter is one." That shut her up for a full 3 seconds. Karen's nostrils flared. "You think this is some small-town game, cowboy? I'm the HOA president. I will have you cited, sued, and shut down." Jed stepped down off the porch and walked right up to her. "You're not on HOA land. This is a cattle ranch, Karen. The law doesn't work the way your board does. And you might want to think twice before trespassing again." For the first time, Karen looked slightly uncertain. But then she straightened, her lips tightening into a smug grin. "Fine. I'll let the county decide. You'll be hearing from them real soon." She turned, stomped back to her Cadillac, and peeled off in a flurry of dust and gravel. Jed shook his head. "Bonnie," he called toward the paddock. "You sure know how to ruffle feathers." Bonnie, true to form, let out a grunt and scratched his horns on the fence post. But Jed knew this wasn't over. Later that night, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Jed sat at his dining room table, going over property maps, drone flight laws, and everything Tina had emailed him. The evidence was stacking in his favor. Drone footage over private land without permission. Repeated harassment. Even the animal control report cleared Bonnie still. A gut feeling told him to prepare. And then, right on cue, came a noise he hadn't heard before. Not the mechanical buzz of a drone, but something more subtle. A faint click, like a camera shutter. Jed stood, walked slowly to the back window, and froze. A red light blinked in the distance, just above the tall hedges near his barn. Not flying, not moving, just watching. A third drone. This one had night vision. Stationary. Likely recording. Jed narrowed his eyes. She was trying a different tactic now. Less obvious, more sinister. He stepped out onto the porch, shotgun in one hand, phone in the other, and took a long, slow video sweep of the area, zooming in on the blinking red dot. He didn't shoot it down. Not yet. He had something better in mind. A little legal bullfight of his own. By Friday morning, Jed Carter had a fresh cup of black coffee in one hand, a phone buzzing with emails in the other, and a bull hood suddenly become an online sensation. It started when Tina uploaded the video of Bunny goring the second drone. She added subtitles, a dramatic slow-motion replay, and a country music riff that hit perfectly with every stomp. Within 6 hours, it had over 300,000 views. Comments poured in. Bunny for president. Best drone defense system I've ever seen. That hoakaren messed with the wrong cowboy. The support was overwhelming, but Jed knew better than to let it distract him. Karen wasn't the type to go quiet. In fact, she was the type to double down. And she did, in spectacular fashion. That afternoon, Jed opened his mailbox to find a thick, glossy envelope with the HOA's emblem in gold foil. He tore it open and scanned the pages. His eyes narrowed. This wasn't just a fine. It was a formal cease and desist order from the East Ridge Estates HOA Legal Committee, accusing Jed of the following: endangering airbound private property housing, a violent and uncontrolled animal creating a nuisance to the neighborhood by hosting viral content, featuring unapproved conduct, and the cherry on top. The letter claimed that although Jed's land technically sat outside HOA boundaries, it was within their community influence perimeter, a term they'd apparently invented to justify extending their authority another 1,000 feet past their border. Jed laughed out loud. Community influence perimeter. What is this? Star Trek? He called Tina. She skimmed the letter via email and nearly choked laughing. They can't be serious, she said. This reads like it was written by a high school debate team with a superiority complex. You think they'll actually try to enforce it? Oh, they'll try. They'll lose. But they'll make noise doing it. That's what Karen's really after: intimidation. Jed exhaled and stared out over the field where Bonnie was basking in the sun like royalty. She's baiting me. Then it's time to bait her back, Tina said. Let's flip the script. But first, do you still have that sign from the county line? Jed grinned. The one that says private property. No trespassing. No drones. You bet. Good. Put it up big. And record everything. If Karen wants to turn this into a legal mess, we'll make it a public one. Later that afternoon, Jed mounted the oversized aluminum sign right at the edge of his property, where the road leading out of East Ridge Estates curved past his fence line. It was impossible to miss. But that wasn't all. He also installed a motion-activated trail camera facing the sky, the kind used to track coyotes. Except this one was tuned for anything buzzing with propellers. Then he posted a second video. A calm one. Just Jed sitting on his porch, sipping coffee, Bonnie grazing in the background. He looked into the camera and said, "This is Jed Carter. I live on 45 acres of legally documented, privately owned Texas land. Any aircraft, drone, or surveillance device crossing this property line will be treated as a threat to livestock. I don't go onto your land. Don't come onto mine." It was short, respectful, and hit 2 million views in 24 hours. But the video did more than make people laugh. It caught the attention of a local news station. The following morning, a reporter from Channel 6 News showed up at Jed's gate, mic in hand, with a cameraman ready to roll. They wanted to interview the bull whisperer and get Bonnie on tape. Jed agreed. But as he spoke to the camera about land rights, drone harassment, and the lengths people like Karen would go to control what they didn't own, something happened that no one expected. A third drone, the one Karen had planted quietly at night, dropped from the sky. Mid-interview. Right behind Jed. With a loud whack. It hit the dirt and scattered plastic all over the gravel like confetti. Everyone froze. The cameraman zoomed in. The reporter blinked, stunned. Jed turned slowly. And standing nearby, chewing cud and staring like nothing had happened, was Bonnie. She hadn't moved an inch, but her horn head, the tip, scraped and glinting with fresh plastic dot, Bonnie had struck again. On live local TV. The local news segment aired that night at 6 p.m. sharp. It ran under the headline, Drone versus Bull, HOA overreach sparks viral showdown on Texas ranch. The footage was pure gold. Jed's calm voice, the peaceful ranch backdrop, Bonnie's sleepy stare, and then bam, the drone crash right behind him, live on tape. The reporters didn't even need to add music. The internet took care of that part within hours. But while the world laughed, Karen Delaney did not. By 9 a.m. the next morning, 2 county vehicles were parked at Jed's gate. One bore the emblem of the Animal Control Office, the other, County Code Enforcement. Jed stepped onto his porch and muttered, "Here comes the circus." Out of the lead truck stepped Sean Patel again, the same animal control officer who'd come by earlier in the week. But this time, he wasn't alone. A stern-looking woman with a notepad and a no-nonsense bob haircut followed behind him. "Morning, Mr. Carter," Sean said, giving a quick wave. "Sorry to bother you again, but we've been asked to conduct a formal inspection." Jed raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. HOA complaint." The woman spoke before Sean could. "Angela Lasky, Code Enforcement. We received a report of a violent animal and unsafe livestock conditions with video evidence submitted anonymously." Jed rolled his eyes. Anonymous. She must have sent it from a burner phone wearing a wig. Angela wasn't amused. "We take these claims seriously. We need to document the condition of your property, your fencing, and your bull." Jed didn't argue. "Fine. Come on in." He led them through the gate, past the barn, and into the paddock where Bonnie was lazily chewing on a patch of alfalfa. The bull looked up, blinked, and plopped back down without a single snort. "Looks dangerous," Jed muttered sarcastically. Angela walked the perimeter, taking photos of the fencing. Sean approached Bonnie slowly, checked for signs of aggression, neglect, or injuries. He scratched the bull behind the ear. Bonnie leaned into it like a sleepy dog. Sean laughed. "He's chill as ever." Angela jotted notes. "What about the drone incidents?" Jed crossed his arms. "You mean when drones trespassed illegally over my livestock, and one of them got too close? I've got video proof. 3 of them, actually. One destroyed midair on footage. One caught live on local news. The other's in a Ziploc bag if you want to see it." Angela stared. "You kept the remains?" Jed handed her a clear plastic tub filled with fried propellers and cracked camera parts. "We also have FAA regulations that prohibit unmanned aircraft from operating below certain altitudes. Over private property without permission," he added. "That drone was well within bull height." Sean nodded. "I already filed my earlier report saying the first incident wasn't grounds for action. Now with 3, looks more like provocation than abuse." Angela flipped the drone debris over. In her hand. "This doesn't look good. For whoever's flying these." Jed smirked. "You're welcome to interview Bonnie. He's real open with reporters these days." Angela wasn't in the mood for jokes, but she couldn't deny what she saw. The fences were up to code. The bull was healthy and clearly not aggressive without reason, and Jed had every piece of footage ready to back his case. "Mr. Carter," she said, finally, "we'll submit our findings. But from what I've seen so far, you're well within your rights, if anything. This looks more like harassment against you." Jed nodded once. "Appreciate your time." They left without incident. But Karen wasn't finished. That evening, she held a full HOA board meeting in her living room, streamed live to all of East Ridge Estates. Jed watched from his phone as Karen stood at the front, arms crossed, addressing her neighbors like a general before battle. We cannot allow dangerous livestock to threaten the safety of our community, she declared. This rancher is deliberately provoking conflict, exploiting social media attention, and violating the spirit of East Ridge values. A few neighbors looked bored. Some nodded, but most glanced sideways at each other, clearly unsure. Karen slammed a folder on her table. That's why I've filed for an injunction. I am demanding that Jed Carter remove that bull or face legal consequences. And I am authorizing funds for a new, permanent surveillance drone to document every move until we win. Jed paused the video and zoomed in on the folder. It wasn't stamped by a court. It was stamped draft. She hadn't filed anything yet. She was bluffing. But if she tried, Jed was ready. Jed Carter had spent most of his life wrangling bulls, fixing fences, and surviving Texas heat waves that would make a city man faint. But today, he found himself doing something entirely new. Shopping online for motion-activated security cameras with night vision and audio detection, and he wasn't stopping at just one. Karen Delaney wanted to play surveillance games. Fine. Jed was about to turn his ranch into a fortress of lawful retaliation, one post at a time. By the end of the day, 15 cameras had arrived via express shipping. High definition, cloud-backed, AI-triggered motion sensors. He installed them around the entire perimeter of his property, facing outward, not to spy on anyone, but to document every single footstep, tire track, or, more importantly, drone flight. He topped it all off with a custom-made banner hanging above his front gate, protected by Bonnie. And for Kay, enter uninvited and you'll see yourself on the evening news. But Jed didn't stop there. He took a trip to town and returned with a pallet of metal fencing panels to cans of bright red paint and a few hand-carved wooden signs. When he was done building, the east side of the ranch, the side closest to the HOA boundary, looked like a mini version of Alcatraz. At the center of it all, a life-size plywood cutout of Bonnie, with light-up lead horns. By Monday morning, cars from the HOA neighborhood were driving by slowly, headlights flashing, trying to figure out if Jed had lost his mind or become a full-blown internet performance artist. He hadn't lost anything. He'd just gotten tired of playing defense. That same evening, Tina drove up from Austin in her dusty Jeep, stepping out. With a file folder under one arm and a devilish grin on her face. You ready to go nuclear? She asked. Jed grinned. Depends what you packed in that folder. Tina sat him down at the kitchen table and opened it. Inside were printed screenshots of Karen's online behavior. Her HOA posts threatening neighbors, publicly accusing Jed of harboring feral animals, and bragging about adjusting neighborhood influence zones to give herself legal standing. There were also records of her drones, 3 separate models registered to her address, none of them licensed with the FAA for commercial or surveillance use. Even better, Tina said. Tapping the documents, we found an East Ridge HOA policy Karen forgot about. It says now, board member can engage in activity that reflects poorly on the HOA. Jed looked up. You saying we can make her on board throw her out? With enough pressure from other residents and this stack of violations, it's not a matter of if. It's when. The very next day, Jed dropped off a letter, signed by Tina, notarized, and backed by legal precedent, at Karen's front door. It was calm, professional, and devastating. It informed her that her drones violated FAA regulations, and Texas trespassing law was being given formal notice of harassment. Jed would be pressing civil claims for surveillance, emotional distress, and property interference if any future drones appeared. And lastly, Bonnie was now registered as a service livestock companion for therapeutic rural living. Under Texas ag law, a title that made Karen's demand for removal legally impossible by 6 p.m. Karen was on her porch, screaming at a poor mailman who had no idea what just landed in her lap. But just when Jed thought she might finally back off, something new happened. Late that night, as he was reviewing footage from the camera fence, one motion alert caught his attention. A figure, hooded, walking along the fence line. Not a drone, not a neighbor walking a dog. A person, on foot, carrying something. Jed rewound the clip and zoomed in. Whoever it was had a gas can in their hand. Jed's jaw tightened. He grabbed his flashlight and headed out with Bonnie trotting close behind. He followed the faint scent of gasoline to the outer fence line. There, he found something chilling. A small patch of dried hay soaked through, and a discarded matchbox nearby. Unused. Thank God. Someone had tried to start a fire and failed. Bonnie snorted sharply at the dark. Jed reached down and gripped the fence post, his knuckles white. This wasn't about drones anymore. This was personal. Jed Carter didn't sleep that night. Not after what he found by the fence, the gas-soaked hay, the empty matchbox, and fresh boot prints leading back toward East Ridge Estates. Someone had trespassed under cover of night and tried to set fire to his land. He didn't call 911. Not yet. He called Tina. "Tell me you're sitting down," he said. "I'm driving back now," she replied. "And I'm bringing friends. You need witnesses. That's arson." Dad. Jed paced the porch with a floodlight scanning the field. Bonnie stayed close, calm but alert, his hooves thudding the dirt with steady rhythm. "Whatever game Karen's playing," Jed muttered, "it just turned criminal." But Karen had no idea her worst mistake was already caught by Jed's newly installed cameras. The infrared trail cam facing the east fence had captured everything. The figure creeping in with a can of gasoline, pouring it near the haystack, fiddling with a lighter. Luckily, the wind had shifted, making ignition impossible. The fire never caught. But the image, crystal clear. And when Jed enhanced the footage on Tina's laptop, there was no mistaking the face under the hoodie. Karen's adult son, Mark Delaney, a 28-year-old with a long history of failed startups, speeding tickets, and a mouth that had once earned him a black eye at a neighborhood BBQ. By noon the next day, the internet knew everything. Tina, leveraging her legal know-how and digital savvy, uploaded a side-by-side video. One half showed the shadowy figure creeping with a gas can. The other half zoomed in to reveal Mark's face in high-res freeze frame. Below, the words flashed, caught red-handed. "Hoakaren's son tries to torch private ranch." The caption read, "You messed with the wrong bull." It took 3 hours to hit 1 million views. And that's when the national media picked it up. Jed's phone exploded with notifications. Talk shows, podcasts, even a popular outdoor survival YouTuber stitched the footage and added Bonnie's charge to a remix. That racked up 500,000 likes in a day. But what truly sent the internet into overdrive? Bonnie's victory lap. Tina had posted a slow-motion clip of Bonnie the bull trotting around the field with the remnants of the third drone still stuck on his horn. Like a war trophy, camera wires dangling, propeller flapping in the wind. They layered it with epic orchestral music and the caption, "Every HOA has its rules, but Jed has Bonnie." The video broke the internet. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Bonnie Justice, #Drone Slayer, #Karen got gored, #Bull Cam 2025. Jed woke up the next morning to find a shipment of fan mail. Someone had even sent Bonnie a custom-made championship belt with his name engraved in gold across the front. But while the world was laughing, the sheriff was knocking. Sheriff Mullins, a man who'd known Jed since high school rodeo days, stepped out of his cruiser looking deadly serious. He wasn't laughing. "We reviewed your footage," Mullins said. "It's clear." That was Mark Delaney. "You want to press charges?" Jed looked at the scorched fence post, then at Bonnie, then back at Mullins. "You're damn right I do." "Good. Because we just arrested him." Mark had been picked up that morning at Karen's house, caught trying to delete his drone logs and burn a backpack full of HOA paperwork. The charges: trespassing, attempted arson, destruction of private property. Karen, she tried to claim her son had gone rogue, that she had no idea. But Jed wasn't buying it, and neither were the neighbors. At the next HOA board meeting, residents showed up in record numbers. Many were wearing Bonnie's ranch security t-shirts. One even brought a plush bull and put it on the speaker podium. Karen stood red-faced, sweating, holding her HOA binder like a shield. But when Tina stepped up, legal documents in hand and a fresh lawsuit prepared, Karen's jaw dropped. "I'm serving you personally," Tina said, placing the papers on the table. And publicly. Karen couldn't speak, couldn't blink. The room clapped, loud. But outside, something was happening. A low buzz. Not from drones this time, but from reporter vans crowding the end of the HOA street. Camera crews, microphones, national attention. Bonnie, as if on cue, wandered up to the fence behind Jed's house and let out a long, rumbling grunt. The kind of sound bulls make when they know they've just won. 2 weeks later, the courtroom was packed tighter than the county rodeo grandstand. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters whispered into their microphones. Even the judge, a stern woman named Dolores Knox with a no-nonsense bun and a stare that could shatter glass, seemed to recognize the absurdity of what was about to unfold. At the center of it all sat Jed Carter, calm, boots polished, hat respectfully removed and resting in his lap. To his right, Bonnie's legal guardian, Tina Carter, armed with evidence, filings, and a crisp closing argument that could make a rattlesnake feel cornered. Across from them, in an ill-fitting suit 2 sizes too tight, was Mark Delaney, looking like a scared possum in headlights, and right beside him, Karen, fuming, frazzled, and completely out of her element. No clipboard, no smug HOA smirk, just nerves, sweat, and desperation. The case was simple on paper. Jed Carter versus Mark Delaney and the East Ridge Estates HOA. Charges included trespassing, attempted arson, drone violations, and property harassment. But everyone in that room knew what this case really was. A reckoning. Tina stood first. She presented the drone footage. One by one, each drone getting gored, grounded, or caught. The courtroom watched in stunned silence as Bonnie's horn took down a $1,200 piece of tech in one clean sweep. A few jurors even chuckled. Then came the security footage. Mark creeping along the fence with a gas can, clearly caught by infrared. Even Judge Knox's eyebrow raised at that one. Tina finished strong. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "this isn't just about drones. It's about a family defending their land, their rights, and their livelihood from a neighbor who thinks HOA power extends beyond her borders. Well, today, we draw the line. And that line is electrified, camera-wired, and guarded by a bull named Bonnie." The courtroom laughed. Judge Knox did in single quotes. Karen stood next. Her voice shook. She fumbled with her notes, quoted bylaws no one recognized, then launched into a dramatic speech about neighborhood integrity and suburban safety. "Jed Carter encouraged his animal to attack our property," she insisted. "He turned his land into a media circus and endangered our community. This is mob rule, with hooves." When it was Mark's turn to speak, he tried to claim it wasn't him in the footage. That fell apart fast. Are you denying that's your face? Judge Knox asked, leaning over the bench. Maybe, he mumbled. Sir, your HOA email address is printed on the drone registration. Sit down. Mark sat. After hours of arguments, the jury deliberated for less than 20 minutes. The verdict? In favor of Jed Carter. $25,000 in damage. Mark to attend mandatory fire safety classes and Karen. Banned from serving on the HOA board for 5 years. But that wasn't the twist. No. That came after court. Because when Jed and Tina walked outside, flanked by cameras, supporters, and one very confused local news weatherman, something unexpected happened. A white Lexus rolled up. Inside was Gregory Alston, the newly elected HOA vice president. He stepped out, sheepish. Mr. Carter, he said, extending a hand. We'd like to offer you something. Jed narrowed his eyes. This gonna make me laugh? No, sir. It's serious. After everything Karen put you through, the community voted her out. We want someone level-headed. Someone with real backbone. The residents would like you to serve as the next HOA president. Jed stared for a moment. Then he laughed out long and loud. You want me, the guy with the bull who destroyed half your spy drones, to run your HOA? Gregory smiled. Yes, sir. Because no one else can keep the peace better than the man who didn't blink when 3 drones, a lawsuit, and a fire tried to take him down. Tina elbowed him gently. Could be fun, Dad. Jed tilted his hat. Only if Bonnie gets a vote. Gregory grinned. Done. 3 months liturged. Carter sat at the front of the East Ridge Estates community meeting. His new HOA president badge sat crooked on his shirt. Beside him, a miniature plush bunny sat proudly on the table, a gift from the neighborhood kids. Rules had changed. No drones within 1,000 feet of livestock. No fake boundary lines. And definitely no Karen on any committee. As for Karen, she'd moved 3 towns over, reportedly now in a duplex with strict no-pet policies. Bunny, he was living large, grazing in peace, and receiving monthly care packages from internet fans across the globe.